Greetings, Kindred. I am Voivode Mekhet, and welcome back to our world of darkness and the Noddist Library. It's been a long time since we've done a cover-to-cover video, but I just got my hands on a copy of In Memoriam, a Vampire the Masquerade source book. I'm kind of interested in going through this one because I have, in the games that I've run, not used Memoriam in the same way that it's meant to be used. I've used it to push along plot points, to suck characters from the modern knights into previous ages before their existence, to let them experience the memories of individuals that are much older than they are. That's not what you're supposed to do, but I've twinked it to make it my way of running things. In fact, it's one of the very few house adaptations that I tend to run that isn't just aesthetic. So, that being said, since it has been a while, let's go ahead and go over what we do here on Cover to Cover. I am going to sit down and I'm going to read this book. And while I am reading this book, when I get to points where I feel like I need to speak up about something, I'm going to pop up and I am going to give my 2 cents on it. The whole point, though, is for me to, in between each chapter of this book, to go over and give my thoughts and my interpretations on the way that it works. That being said, let's go ahead and check out this beautiful cover art here. It's sticking with the 5th edition vampire themes with the whole pinks and purples, and I really do like that. As much as I am very nostalgic for the green marble that was from past editions. Actually, if you open up my phone, it's my screen is the green marble. I gotta say though, I really do appreciate this. I really do appreciate the artwork, the stylistic vision of it's almost photo, it's almost comic book. It's just I really do like this. I think that it's a very interesting stylized choice to take this franchise in. So as always, I typically read the opening notes of a book in these things. There's no escape from your past. You've been dead longer than you were alive. You've witnessed the passing of every mortal from your first life, through violence, disease, or the relentless march of time, while you, undying, remain bound to this world. Your nights are haunted by the echoes of history, from the distant whispers of 2 centuries past to the climactic world wars and the rise of the modern era. Embrace the mantle of the noveaux elders, the ancillae who have seized power in the absence of true elders, many of whom have now fallen or have been beckoned away. Become a kindred of 100, 150, or even 200 years. Detail your backstory and relive the formative trials and tribulations that forged you into the monster you are today. Command the night with the power of centuries behind you in Memoriam for Vampire the Masquerade. This says to craft ancillae characters with enriched rules designed for advanced play. Consolidate and streamline Memoriam Rules, featuring new variations and advanced rules for deeper character development. New rules, resources, and plot lines surrounding 11 mortal eras and 8 pivotal Kindred events. 6 new lore sheets that link Kindred to significant historical moments, and unleash a 200-year-old Kindred and delve into the ongoing struggle with the beast as their humanity erodes. In Memoriam is a sourcebook for Vampire the Masquerade, a storytelling game of personal and political horror. I gotta say that I am a huge fan of the way that this is all worded. This kind of inches your way into getting closer to playing those elder characters that so many of us from older editions of Vampire the Masquerade actually miss tremendously. Now, personally, I think a lot of that want for playing older characters is still there. Obviously, it is not the intention of Vampire the Masquerade 5th edition to let you play such ancient, horrifying characters. However, I have been lucky enough to have taken the time to run several chronicles at this point of Dark Age Vampire, before the Masquerade was even set. Set in the Dark Ages of England, dealing with the cult of Mithras, going over the Giovanni Chronicles as the Camarilla was in its infancy. There are ways of doing this. In fact, they're in the core book. It tells you how exactly blood potency works with specific generations, and their ways of going ahead and adapting characters to that. Now, that mixed with the previous book that we have received, Gehenna Wars, gives us more of an idea of how older characters can play. It's not that big of a deal to have characters set in the Dark Ages, because you could still have them be neonates. You can still have them be ancillae, which apparently this book is what is going to be the main focus, is how ancillae work, which I'm incredibly excited because I've never seen a book that directly covers that. In the older editions, specifically, I'm going to go ahead and put this out, the Mind's Eye Theater LARP editions, we had Laws of the Night, which taught us how to make vampires in the neonate and ancilla styling. And then we also had Laws of Elysium, which was a book completely devoted to playing characters that were 500 years and older. Anyway, I'm going into a whole bunch of exposition that you really don't need at this point, so let's go ahead and move on to the next portion of this. Oh, just blinding white all of a sudden in this stuff. By all means, please check out basically the credits of In Memoriam, just to give those people, everybody who's really put so much work into this, just give them their due. All right, so the very first thing that I'm going to end up reading here is the introduction, Accursed Creatures. So give me 1 second and I will be right back, and I will tell you exactly what I think of this introduction. Okay, people, I have just read through the introduction. I've got to say that I'm actually very impressed, because not only does it go on about how 5th edition is meant for fledglings and neonates, it goes on to give an example of what ancillae are, what the concept of in memoriam actually means. The fact that it's a phrase used in obituaries, blah, 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 blah. That's all written down here. But it also goes on to give examples of literary ancillae that do not actually fall into 5th edition vampire, such as Lestat from the Interview with the Vampire series. He is an ancillae. He's a character who is not quite a neonate. He's been around for a little while. He's picked up a few tricks, and he's playing at being the elder. One of the things that kind of made me giggle when I was reading this is the fact that they mentioned Spike from Buffy the Vampire Slayer. That character, William the Bloody, was in fact an ancillae. That makes a lot of sense, because it really has a lot to do with what era their embrace fell into, how old that vampire actually is. Not quite an elder, not really a neonate anymore. They're that strange little line in between. Now, while I was reading this, I got the stylization of what they were trying to say, and the thing that actually popped into my mind the most, strangely enough, is a show on YouTube that's actually running right now. That is it's for Project Ghostlight, which Alex Ward, the famed for playing Jasper in LA by Night and Isaac in New York by Night, is the storyteller for a group of newly embraced Thin Bloods. Obviously, we're taking a huge step in a different direction here, because I'm talking about a book about ancillae, but it was just the stylization of the wording that really made me think of, I think it's called Personal Nightmares, which is Private Nightmares. Private Nightmares is just, it's so deep and so entrenched in the very little details of what these new vampires are going through. I highly suggest watching it. Probably going to put the link in the description. I have already, unfortunately, listened to all of it, and now have nothing to listen to on my way to LA for the Darkness Emergent event coming up. Anyway, but The stylization choices used to describe how this book works, how to use this book, and what things are, just, it really hits deep. It's not one of those things where it's like, hey, this is a thing, figure it out. That also doesn't hold your hand and walk you through things, but the wording used really does help you get in the mood for ancillae characters. Okay, we could call this chapter 1. I'm not really sure. There might be another chapter 1 later in this, who knows. But right now we are on the Spindle of Clotho and Silai characters. Now, I have to say a lot of the writing in this section of the book is just downright perfect. There are a couple of things on here I want to jump around on to show you at, so get ready for a little bit of like scenery whiplash, because I will be jumping around from thing to thing. Starting with Ancillae Character Summary. This right here walks you through how to build an ancillae character. The same rules, basically, that you can find in core book Vampire the Masquerade for 5th edition. However, it is slightly different. And as much as I actually appreciate the entire thing on here, I appreciate everything that this has to do except for one thing, and it's the stylization of writing. This is where Mekhet complains. I am dyslexic, and also I kind of need glasses from time to time. And I gotta say, this right here, under all of the different types, I'll try to point it out better than with just my mouse cursor. That 3, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. Crap, I do not like that. That is annoying. I like the way that they did it in the 5th edition core book, where it was like, take 1 at 3, take 6 at 2, take 7 at 1. Like, I am fine with that. But the whole, like, let's just mark down each individual number like that, that is dizzying, and I do not care for it. However, other than that, the rules for character creation on building a ancillae is actually pretty good. I like this a lot, and I might try to find a way to include it. Into my Discord games, to allow my players to flesh out their characters a little bit more. I'm going to spend some more time studying up on the ancillae character creation summary a little bit, but from what I can see at first reading, it's got a lot of really good stuff in it that really fleshes out a character. Next, this book goes into coteries, and not only coteries, Codery Sheets. It talks about how different things can be utilized for your coterie, lets you put things down on a sheet. It walks you through the whole thing. I highly, highly love this. I am a huge fan of letting vampires group up and become coteries, packs, gangs, whatever you want to call them. I am very much appreciative that this is in here, because I think when you're a neonate, your coteries are typically thrown together out of either self-preservation or because the prince or baron wants you to do a thing, and therefore you are being forced to work with a group of people. Ancillae, however, are going to end up having coteries that they have pieced together themselves due to the fact they have worked with other people, spent enough time knowing what exactly they need for survival, and it makes a lot of sense here. So I'm a huge fan of this. A couple of new things I want to talk about that are in this is it also goes over the idea of what a coterie is. It could be the prince's court. It could be a group of vampires who have teamed up because the city needs changes, and they do have examples of that. But another thing I want to talk about is the very brand new ancillae advantages and flaws that they have noted in this section of the book, because this is the character creation. We have flaw number 1, shameful child. You did the thing other kindred have trauma from. You created a child and left them to fend for themselves. This gets dramatic. We've got the second flaw, touchstone embraced by your enemies. This former touchstone of yours didn't simply die or change as a person. They were embraced, and now they run with one of your enemies. Getting into some archaic stuff, we have Custodian of History. Let's see, we've got feeding flaws, outdated preference, That's interesting. This flaw resembles the Ventrue clan Bane, except your preferred mortal has become almost impossible to come by. That sucks. We got some new mythic stuff. We got grief phobia, old tricks. Let's see. A set of uncommonly lucky dice. Okay. Grimoire. It's empty until you fill it, but it grants you a +1 die bonus on all level 1 ritual tests. That's pretty damn cool. Golden Eye Amulet that protects you against threats. You get a free premonition warning once per scene when somebody is about to cause you harm. These are all a lot of fun, and there's a lot more of them on here that I really just don't have time to go over all of them. But, like, there's a lot of really fun stuff in here. We got a detailed look at the Ocean of Time, which is effectively like, what era does your character fall in? Huge fan. I got no other notes when it comes to this section, I think. So, the thread. This goes into detail on specific events in mortal history. I like the fact that it covers the American Revolution and such things like that. It really does have a way of wrapping a character into those time periods. It gives you just enough information to be able to give you a way to start off on looking into other things for your character. Building a human can sometimes be the most important part of playing a vampire. But when you're playing an older vampire, sometimes we're looking into human histories that don't really make sense to us as modern people. Until you start reading history, there is a lot of stuff that we can compare that's going on right now to things that happened, I don't know, in the 40s. So if you stop and think about it, there's situations that you can take to give yourself fulfillment in building your characters. So, by all means, do not, I plead at you, do not skip over reading this chapter. It's beautifully written, it has wonderful examples of how characters work, and it covers human history in a respectful and responsible way. Kindred History. This part of the book, when I first saw the chapter, I went, oh, this is a chance for World of Darkness to misstep. Because it has in the past. Not World of Darkness, but White Wolf. They did things to tell good stories. And I'm not even going to say the stories aren't good, but they really weren't taken into almost a respectful light when it comes to some of the ways that they handled things. Primary examples of that would be the fact that certain parties, social parties, we'll put it that way, are said to have been infiltrated by specific vampires and made to enact evil. Basically, they took all the responsibility for actual evil practitioners and put it all on vampires, and that's not fair. Because these people should not be just waved off. They screwed up, they committed horrible crimes, and we cannot forget that. Those of us who forget the past are doomed to repeat it, after all. But this is actually a very good chapter, because it talks about various things that happened in Kindred History that doesn't really touch on mortal history. So, the things that are hidden from humans. We don't have to worry about a lot of the things that Kindred did as being excuses on why the humans cannot be held guilty for things. This is a list of full-on Kindred events, and much like the last chapter, not only does it go over how things happened, so that you can build a character who has the proper PTSD and other such things for experiencing this stuff, it also gives you ideas for how to run flashbacks, which is an interesting game setting. I just have to say that. We saw it done in LA by Night when they did the opening acts of the French Revolution, where Erika Ishii played Marie Antoinette, and we got to see like some of our favorite characters, like Lucida of Aragorn pop in and stuff like that. Like that was cool. That was really neat. But it takes a lot of understanding and agreeance when it comes to other characters, other players, because asking them to play other characters, even for, I don't know, an hour, can take excessive amount of preparation. Because they're effectively taking on the parts of NPCs and you have a story to tell. Anyway, I love the way that Chapter 3 played out. I will admit that I was 100% nervous when I first saw it, but it's really good. Oh, also, I gotta just jump in here one more time. It covers the Stoker debacle. Huge thrill that in 5th edition, we get the Voivode of Wallachia himself. We get Dracula and all the things that need to really be said about him. That makes me very, very happy. We have a character sheet for Dracula. Yay. It's always fun to see that kind of thing in a Vampire the Masquerade book. Playing the Downfall. This is a somber chapter. It talks about failure. It talks about losing your touchstones. It talks about what happens when a vampire who is open to the expanse of forever experiences decades or centuries of time. This goes on about what vampire truly is. Loss. Loss of humanity, loss of your loved ones, loss of what you thought your goals should be, but the world continues changing around you, even though you're a static being. Very well worded. I gotta say that it reads very smooth. There are some letters in here to really help you gain context and help you get the feels when it comes to playing a vampire of advanced age. Reading Chapter 4 is truly an experience in and of itself if you're trying to get to understand your character who's older, trying to get into the headspace of something that has truly experienced centuries of loss. So I've got nothing really to complain about this one at all. It's written well. The illustrations, of course, are always beautiful in these books. I'm kind of interested, instead of going in on this long description without trying to give spoilers for how this is, I'm specifically asking those of you who have read this book or are going to read this book, please go in the comments of this video and tell me what you thought, because this is truly a thought-provoking chapter about how your character changes over time in a stagnant world of the Masquerade. Storytelling in Silai. Chapter 5 goes in deep to the storyteller's responsibilities of how to utilize a game set with ancillae. What are your goals? Why are you doing this? What drives you to be a kindred of this age being active in these nights? It goes over why you want to do flashbacks, why revisiting the past makes these characters flush. A while ago, I did a story called Black Sheep. And it focused on a group of Hekata who were caught up in the political machinations of their elders. And I typically wouldn't be able to say anything about that story involving conducting the chorus here, but one of the characters ended up being older than I had expected. And it was an experienced role player. She was actually my original storyteller, who I felt lucky to have them at my table. The first time I had ever played Vampire the Masquerade, Cole was there. Cole was the one who taught me everything. They're the ones who started me on this path, quite sincerely. So when they said, I want to play this character, which was problematic from all sides. I respected their wish because I don't put limitations on the people who want to play in my games. They wanted to play an escaped slave during a time when slavery had already been publicly abolished. But one of the kindred didn't care. And we ran through their character's escape, their character's embrace, what that meant to them, how they became what they were in the modern knights, and that effectively was like running what an actual memoriam is supposed to be like. They got to see what their character went through. And I greatly enjoyed running those scenes. It was hard, and it was, outright say, problematic, but we tried to handle it with as much respect, dignity, and just not whitewashing everything as possible. We wanted to show people what the true horrors were while being in a fictional setting. And this chapter helps reiterate that in my thought process. It helps you to really focus in on what specific characters of an advanced age need. This is a good step towards wanting to run for elders. It's a great chapter. It has a lot of information in it dealing with do's and don'ts, but put in the language of yes and, as if you were playing, on a stage with a performing arts troupe or something like that. I like Chapter 5's writing. I think that it expresses a lot of important details that some people who are storytelling and playing might overlook. So this is definitely so far a highly suggested cover-to-cover read for this book. Also in this chapter, I would like to point out that there are story-driven Memoriam rules. In fact, if you go up a little bit further, extended Memoriam rules. These are a very important in-depth look at how Memoriam can actually be utilized in-game, because a lot of people who I've spoken to have been like, I love the concept, I love the idea, but how? And why? Why would I bring this into the game? How do I play it off? And this right here does walk you through, giving some very beautiful examples on how to just blend them in. Because you might have a character written up saying that they lived through the Industrial Revolution, but what exactly did that do to the character? What exactly did that do to shape them into the kindred that they are today? I highly suggest going over the Memoriam rules. I think I might actually just do a full-on video specifically about them, simply because it is such a beautiful way of putting things and how your character can live through past events that they were involved in. Getting on to some very interesting things here, powers and uses. There are things in here for, as the title of this says, stealing memories from fledglings, or for fledglings. This is effectively the kind of stuff that I've done in my games, making it so that younger characters can experience older things. I have had players who embraced well after, got to experience the fall of London, got to experience through the eyes of an elder in the city what happened in local city politics 100 years before they were even born. This has been very, very helpful. And for this reason, I want to point out that World of Darkness has been nice enough to give us a couple of new blood sorcery rituals. We got Shared Memory. Memoriam is usually a solitary experience, but the Tremere learned long ago to become observers to another's memories by imbibing their vitae. Blood bonds can be formed when engaging in this ritual, keeping its use reasonably rare. This is effectively the story that I've used. This is what I have done to utilize Memoriam in my games with my younger characters. There's the level 2 Stolen Memory. A kindred gets more than their disciplines through their embrace. Bits and pieces of their sire's memories haunt their vitae. And if this know-how may accept them in glimpses, this ritual allows the blood sorcerer to access their sire's memories even without the sire's consent or presence. That's a fun power right there, being able to steal specifically your sire's memories due to the fact that it's in your blood already. I really like that. They also have a level 4 here called Guided Memory. It says that this ritual originally occurred in the player's guide. By imbibing the blood of a willing kindred, a vampire can relive the memories of the donor who guides them through the donor's past experiences. In addition to allowing the vampire to recall another's memories, these guided journeys can unlock discipline powers, merits, and potential other gifts of the donor. I kind of feel like one of the stories that I ran also kind of falls into this one. One of the things that caught my attention is that, and memoriams are fun. Just want to point that out. I love the fact that, especially in these books, there are powers and merits and stuff that you can gain access to due to all of this. The idea that even though, like, you didn't experience it yourself, you still get the memory of it. That's played a part in a lot of the game sessions that I've run, especially with one of our characters named Alice. Somebody who has effectively become the person that they were bonded with from a memoriam. I'm losing words here. But the idea of this one, engaging the whole table. It says it right here. Memoriam scenes are, by design, focused on a single player character, which makes it important for the storyteller, doesn't let them take over completely, assuming you still want the rest of the troupe to have fun. Assigning characters from a past. When you're running a memoriam, you really do need to put a little extra effort than just running a regular game. I know when I run Vampire the Masquerade, a lot of my stuff is, yeah, I have an idea, I have an outline of what I want to accomplish, but players are going to destroy that because everybody's going to want to do their own thing. Everybody's going to want to grasp together, and there's going to be consequences for those actions. There's going to be rewards for those actions. But in a memoriam, you kind of have to give a near scripted performance when it comes to the other players. You got to hand them out players, at least give them drive and reason for doing what they're doing. Let them get away with things like that, and also find a way to reward them in character for basically sitting out of the game session in the character that they designed and want to play. Memoriam is one of those things where you absolutely have to have everybody on the same page. And this, engaging the whole table, really walks through how to do that properly. Appendix 1, my people, lore sheets. I understand that this is probably something that a lot of you want. We will take a glimpse, but we are not doing a normal lore sheet video on here. Obviously, I've already gone long enough into this book, but I will go over some basic stuff. So, what exactly do we have? We have the birth of the Anarch Free States. What does it say? It says the second Anarch Revolt started with the toppling of the old Camarilla Prince in Los Angeles in 1944. Soon, violence gripped the city. The Anarch gang seeking out Camarilla holdouts. Those loyal to the old order seeking to escape and make a glorious last stand. Havens burned, kindred met their ends, and Anarchs triumphed. Due to the legendary nature of those nights of revolution, many of the kindred who were there enjoy bragging about it. Some of those who were not there have made up their invented histories for themselves, pretending that they too were part of the great event. Now, in the wake of the third Anarch Revolt, being connected to the birth of the Anarch Free States in Los Angeles carries a certain cachet. You are an original revolutionary. So this one right here is going to let you play a character, and Silai, obviously, who was around during the 1940s when the Anarch Free States became a thing. I kind of like to think that this is either Jeremy McNeil or Nines Rodriguez back then wielding an axe against this dude's face. Sorry to be that dude. What's next? Child of the Revolution. The French Revolution was a time of tremendous upheaval, unleashed brutality, and political change. The elite Camarilla Old Guard lost a lot of control from the old atrocities and landlord roots, while the newly formed Bohemians rallied entrepreneurial and reformist younger generations to tip the balance of power. The infighting, riots, and war escalations allowed the anarchs to roam Paris unimpeded for several years and to recruit in numbers. The Camarilla elite worked towards calling these uprisings and driving them out after the Restoration. Kindred, who made it through the Revolution, can tell many stories of this unique time, its careless brutality, its vibrant hope for change, its dark memories of the dead and dying, and streets running with blood. Great description, I gotta say, on that one. I kind of can't wait to go through this one specifically. This one really does open up a lot of details about characters who are that old. The French Revolution is something that happened well in the past, but it does fit into the time frame of when ancillae characters could have been active. This is a situation where a human event, I guess, is really a good way of putting it. I really can't even say that, like, the humans screwed up on this one. There was so much lack of communication between those people of the upper echelons and those people on the street who were keeping the upper echelons fed. This is a situation where you could definitely say that there was vampire nearby enjoying it, but not actually steering it. So it's one of those situations where, like, it really depends on how the storyteller runs this one, but I definitely would not put Kindred to blame for the entire thing. But you could definitely say that the revolt of the Anarchs back then ran side by side with the revolts of the human peasantry of the time. Oh, guys, people are going to freak the hell out. Descendant of Dracula. We don't have many Tzimisce lore sheets, but we have one now. As Vlad Tepes moved to Europe, he made many enemies, not least among the kindred. But where he moved, he also took shelter. And his shelter took shelter too. At least, that's what the rumors say. It's known that, for a time, it was all the rage to be a child of Dracula. Younger kindred, eager to set themselves apart, perhaps deserted by their actual slayers, claimed the title. Some hinted coquettishly at the mysterious ancestral lands, carrying a jar of dirt for their aesthetic of it. Others did so with a reluctance to those who know that the honor of belonging to a bloodline many would see ended as the most uncertain one. Tonight, only a few would openly claim the bloodline of the Impalers as their own. Some even suggest that Tepes' children were all destroyed in the last century, perhaps by Dracula himself. Nonetheless, you are just one such descendant. We have a Tzimisce lore sheet. I'm so excited. And the fact that it's one of such prestige. May I also add that the Camarilla are going to hate you instantly because you are a child of the biggest breach that has ever graced the Masquerade. I'm loving the picture here. It really does just give off the flamboyance of what a child of the dragon must actually be. Dracula. I'm loving all the mentions of Dracula in this book. All right, now we see the Order of Repentance. The Repentants are kindred, who lost much of their humanity but regained enough to maintain control. They now devote themselves to representing the vile actions they performed while the beast controlled them. To join their ranks, you must have convinced the order of your will to pay for your sins, usually by prostrating yourself in front of the whole chapter of their repentance. In many ways, being one of the repentants is similar to belonging to a monastic order, as the rules are strict and many. A repentant exists in fear, for that happens if they give in to the whispers of the beast. And some take extreme measures to stay on that narrow path of self-control. This may involve self-inflicted pain, asceticism, extensive meditation. Some become self-absorbed in their martyrdom, finding a sort of enjoyment in the constant punishment. This is a very interesting one. I like the idea of the Order of Repentance, the concept of vampires who are doing anything in their power to not be the beast. There are always going to be those people who just take things a little too far, and this could very well be one of them. The Red Lady. There's a toreador in Silai, somewhere in Prague, called the Red Lady. She's important in the local Camarilla, but not the strictest when it comes to her alliances, since she's famous for her parties, where no one asks questions about what affiliations you belong to. It's a perfect place to disappear in a crowd, make deals with people you shouldn't do business with, or just give in to some base carnal desires. What happens in these parties stays in these parties, but break the agreement and you'll never be invited again, or worse. Interesting. I wonder exactly who the Red Lady is. This is going to be something that I'm going to have to end up doing a deep dive on at some point in time to look into who these people are. Oh God, the Vanderbilt Ventru. Ha! Well, let's get into some early American royalty, shall we? The Vanderbilt family was one of the most influential families in the 19th century New York. Their immense wealth amassed through the business of railroads and shipping. Cornelius Vanderbilt was the richest man in America by his death in 1877, and his son, William Henry Vanderbilt, doubled the fortune in the following decades until his own untimely and suspicious death. The epitome of Golden Age opulence, the Vanderbilts held almost royal status in American society. The main family themselves were mortals, but the same cannot be said for the wider circle of friends and relatives. At the highest of the fortune, the Vanderbilts were all but surrounded by Ventru. You were one of the parasites of the corpse of the gilded family, making alliances to keep as much of it to yourself as possible. This is a Ventru-only character add-on lore sheet. The Vanderbilts. I'm very interesting to see that has made its way into basically Vampire the Masquerade royalty, at least for America. And the very last thing that I want to cover before I basically go over the full thought process that I have while reading this book is Appendix 2, Authenticity in Historical Eras. This chapter, this appendix, is very good at going over what you need to do to help keep things going. And one thing that I do need to just touch on is the fact that it's not going to be perfect. You were not there. There's a good chance that you're not a, history major, but even if you are, there's also a good chance that your players aren't. You do have to be forgiving. You can't make everybody use an accent that was used back then. have everybody dress in the clothes from back then. People are going to make mistakes, and you can't let that destroy your game. You've got to have some flexibility on this one. The ideas that are presented in this section are wonderful, and they're written out very, very well, but the player base and the storytellers have to remember to keep at least a little bit of flexibility when it comes to utilizing Memoriam and running in games that are set in earlier eras. Okay, guys, so we just read through In Memoriam, a source book for Vampire the Masquerade. This is a great book. It's a great additive to the collection for Vampire the Masquerade. I think it falls into a specific type of category that I personally just think calls breaking the mold. Vampire the Masquerade 5th edition was designed to be played as fledglings, thin bloods, and neonates. There is rules for ancillae, but even then, it's not really meant to be played for characters who are of above a certain age. This book gives you not only rules for utilizing memoriams, but also rules for utilizing higher fleshed out ancillae so that your characters can become better. There is a few things when it comes to the way that they writ things out, but it's seriously just the stylization that I'm not a fan of. But the book itself is beautiful. I gotta say that. The Mold Breaker book that I'm talking about is going to be this and the Gehenna War book. Also a little bit of the core book, because with those 3 books, you can literally build vampires active in any time frame. You can play Vampire the Masquerade Dark Ages. You can play Vampire the Masquerade Victorian Ages. You can play the Edwardian era. You can play Industrial Revolution Vampire. There's nothing stopping you from doing that, and they're giving you the tools if you know how to use them. Memoriam is... It's got some fun stuff in it. The merits are really fun. The flaws are really fun. The couple of powers that they have in there, which are primarily blood sorcery, mind you. There's a level 1, a level 2, and a level 4 blood sorcery ritual. They're good. They're a nice thing to add, and I've been using them longer than I knew this book was coming out because I felt I needed it. The World of Darkness saw that need, not just in me, but most likely in others, and decided to fill it. They saw a need, they filled a need, and I appreciate that. Other than that, I gotta say, let's do the classic. Let's just go over all the things. The art in this book is gorgeous. The illustrations, the photos, whatever you like, they're all beautiful. 100%. The content in the book is great. It is useful. It answers a lot of questions. Any added rules are wonderfully, they hit the mark, definitely. But they do still open the chance to have, what's the best way of putting this? Adjustments to fit your personal game, house rulings and things like that. This at least gives you an open line. It's got lore sheets, which everybody loves. Gonna go ahead and put that out. And the very last thing, is this book needed for your Vampire the Masquerade collection? No, not at all. Is it wonderful? Is it a great addition to your collection? Absolutely, hell yes. If you can buy it, should you? Absolutely, hell yes. It's a great book. But seriously, if you want to run a complete Vampire the Masquerade game and you only want the bare bones to get you through, all you really need is the core book and the player's guide. Those 2 books right there, I say that every single time I make one of these. Those 2 books walk you through every single thing you need with all of the clans, any disciplines that you need to have on there, everything. They also have a great number of lore sheets and things like that you can add to your character to flesh them out further. However, there is always going to be a level of stagnicity when it comes to playing those games based on those 2 books. And these additive books, the Second Inquisition, source book for the Vampire the Masquerade. Gehenna War, source book for the Masquerade. In Memoriam, source book for the Masquerade. Bloodstained Love. These are all books that add so much if the players and the storyteller are willing to put that effort into adding it into their stories. But if it's just going to sit there and collect dust, I mean, some of us like our collections, you know? Some of us are Tzimisce and we just need to have our hoard. Either way, I'm very glad that I have this book. I will be using it actively, and I cannot wait to have more of these kind of books. I see this as the Ancillae book, as I see the Gehenna War book as the Elder book. I'd love to see some clan books pop up like they used to. Obviously, I don't think I could absolutely afford an influx of like suddenly 15 more books or anything like that, but it would be nice to see that kind of thing happen in the future at some point in time. Anyway, I am Voivode Mekhet. This is our World of Darkness, and I want to thank you for joining me in the Nodus Library and taking a look at In Memoriam, a source book for Vampire the Masquerade, 5th edition. And I will see you all in the next video. Good evening.